Hello everyone, welcome back to Rebel Brick. Today we are looking at some of my Star Trek ships that I have from Kreo. Now Kreo hasn't existed in a couple of years and I understand that. I don't know, it's one of those things of just having the nostalgia and kind of feeling like a little bit of a Star Trek. I do a lot of Star Wars and you guys have, if you watch any of the videos, I do a ton of Star Wars. I love both Star Wars and Star Trek. Star Trek was always just the scientific and the exploration of everything and how they just kind of kept going out and you know, all that stuff. And it was a weekly serial that I would watch, and you know, I grew up watching the reruns. Star Wars, when I was growing up, I mean, I had the 3 movies, that's it, and then all the imaginations that went with it. So they kind of, you know, filled each different gaps in my love of space and adventure and everything else. So regrettably, I don't have some of the other Star Trek type Lego ships. I know there are some other manufacturers that are making some ships and that. You can find them on eBay, or yeah, you can find them on eBay. You can on Amazon, because that's usually where I do all mine. I did see that, and I think it is the DIY that I had gotten for the micro builds. I think that they were doing a Bird of Prey and maybe a couple other various ships here and there, trying to find certain ones or whatever is not as easy. There again, I've played plenty of Star Trek games throughout the years and that as well. You know, I don't just do Legos, I play a lot of video games. I love the sci-fi genre. I mean, we started off with Dungeons and Dragons and everything else, and it's just a huge love and passion and everything else, and that's what a lot of this really is. It's just my silliness and my love for just being silly and goofy and all that stuff. It just kind of helps break up the day. But these are the 3 ships that I do have from the Kreo line. So what we have is and please forgive me because I'm going to say this wrong. I think this is what a D2 or a D4 Klingon Bird of Prey. We have one of the shuttles that they had used. This is from the second Star Trek. What would that be? Into Darkness. So this would be the shuttle from Into Darkness, and of course they had done this set. I did not pick up because it was hard just trying to find this set at the time, and I really was not getting stuff off of Amazon at the time. So really, I had to search high and low, and I think I found this on clearance at a hobby shop. And I think even at the time, I think it was still about full price, because I think the price had skyrocketed and then it came back down to its normal price. So, but what we'll do is we'll kind of look at these individually. We're going to start off with our Bird of Prey here. I'm going to slide this back just a little bit, and I'm going to move our shuttle over. So our Bird of Prey does actually have hinges, so that way it can move up. The regrettable part is, if I leave it here, as you see, the wings fall. It is fine when it's actually down, because I mean, as the wings, you know, if you're traveling, typically they would be in the down position. Up is for landing, and the other thing is usually when they're in attack mode, they would be down as well. Otherwise they'd be like in a neutral or whatever. They don't give us a lot of interior room, but this is a smaller ship. I believe that they were seeing at the time this only had a crew of maybe 6 people total. So in that fairness, this really is not that bad of a size for that size of a ship. We do have a cockpit for a pilot. And of course, we have a Kreo Klingon here. I'll leave him in there. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. Okay, because I know I got another Klingon back here. I could get, say, 2 Klingons back here laying down. And of course, this one has a betleth. The head is pretty much a standard. If you take the head off, you don't get to take the mask off or anything else. There's no removing of the helmet to see how the Klingons were, but in typical Kreo style, you could actually move the arms back and forth. This is how the Kreo figures actually came, so you could actually twist the torso if you wanted, which is fine in some regards, but the only problem I had is if I got him to actually sit down in there, and I'm trying to pull him up and out of there, quite often the torso comes off the legs. So I do know that for some of my G.I. Joe Kreons, I actually kind of glued them because I kept getting frustrated that they kept falling apart on me. And maybe I'll regret all that later, but that's something I had done at the time. I did not do that with this one because typically he sits kind of inside of a tote. Unfortunately, I don't have as much room as I really wish in the basement, and you know, as you hear, I have a couple bunnies, and then I have a lot of area devoted to rummage sale stuff from when my daughters were younger. Hoping that hopefully I can get all that out of there and I can take it over on the wife. This, I believe, has some shooters here. Let's see, trying to remember how that worked. I think it's right here. Okay, so the shooters kind of works. Okay, so this piece here is a solid piece, but this right here is where it shoots. And I'll close that so I can bring this up. This is a standard kind of like grasping arm kind of plate set here, and then that just pushes down and pops it out. Again, I've said this I don't know how many times, I'm not a big fan of shooters. I don't really care for them all that much. Not in the toys. It's one thing if you're going to sit there and have a Nerf gun or something like that and just have fun with that, but as far as shooters and stuff like that in my Legos, I'm not a real big fan of that, but that's just me. In the movie, I know that they had the side door. I think it was more in the back that the characters actually came out from. If we look on here, we do have our two thrusters as well as this here. And it's all part of the engine and the hyperdrive, or the warp drive, hyperdrive Star Wars. So that's really the extent of this. This, you know, has some nice markings here. Had some stickers to kind of cover all this. If you notice, I don't know how well you do notice this, but this is actually etched into the plastic pieces. So we do have some designs that were actually etched into the plastic. So that is a little different from something that we normally get out of Lego. But it was their way of doing things. And I know I've said this before, I think Kreo had a lot of good ideas. As a new company trying to do things, not having the experience that what we see out of Lego. I think they had a lot of good ideas. Trying to get them to work out properly maybe weren't the greatest, but I mean, give them credit for trying. Now this is actually modified. So we have our shuttle here, and we actually have I'm trying to remember exactly who we had in here. I think this was actually Sulu in there, but it doesn't seem right. I don't remember who we had in there. With the red shirt, I'm going to say Scotty, but I could very well be wrong. I know that they, for the most part, just stayed with the regular figures. We have Spock in here. Now, these don't work. Here, let me move my mouse here so I can lean over here. All right. Trying to get them out of here. I redid this because there was a door on the bottom of this as well. So you actually had like a little piece that you could pull out, and the door would fall, because in the movie Spock was kind of standing up, then he was kind of laying down and waiting to drop down onto the planet. So with that being said, they had put a door on the bottom. Unfortunately, I didn't really care for how that door was because it kept opening up on me. And the other nice thing is, I don't think you can see it very well. Actually, let me turn the light off here. I got lights going around my pool table, so it works a lot better. And then this gets dark, and I turn that off. All right, so hopefully now you can see it. There is an actual light in there. Yeah, I can see that on the screen. All right, so we actually have a light brick which still works, which is wonderful, because unfortunately sitting downstairs here, sometimes I get a little extra humidity. I've got a dehumidifier now, but unfortunately some of the things I have, like some of the flashlights and all that stuff, you know, how the battery kind of corrodes. That unfortunately had happened to the Enterprise, so it's got lights in there that I just can't use anymore. So this actually has a very classic Star Trek shuttle, the original series look, you know, with the nacelles on the side. This comes back a little bit because of the light, but otherwise it is pretty flat back here. So to say this actually does, for a very miniature shuttle, look pretty accurate. If I was to have characters sit, I think I can get maybe 3 of them in here, looking in here. 2 for sure. 2. Because this kind of goes down here, so I can get 1 here and 1 sitting there. And I think I had Spock and Uhura in there for a little bit, kind of sitting down, and then I think every time I pick this up, because I keep this on a shelf closer to me, and then that's sitting in a drawer, and then that's sitting on a shelf. So these 2 have a little bit of dust on them. That's not so bad because it's been sitting in a drawer, so it's got something kind of keeping it a little bit more protected. But I'm happy that that light works, because that's kind of a neat thing. These, I think, were different shooters. I think that had something else on there, or it was from a different set that I had that had shooters or something, and I just put those around. That's the only reason. These were not originally around there. It was a little modification because I think I had them, and those are Kreo pieces, so I kind of kept them that way. But all in all, I mean, with the stickers on here and that, it does look fairly nice. I think it's pretty slick. You can find this. I think originally this was like $15 to $20, and I think if you find it on Amazon now, you're looking at $50. So, you know, if you're a diehard Trekkie or whatever, and you're looking for it, yeah, maybe. But even then, I think it's a little steep. Just being honest. Let's see, and then we have the Enterprise itself. So, unfortunately, to me, the only unfortunate part is the actual bridge itself. It does have a bridge inside there. You can open this up, and we will. But it'd be nice if this was a little thicker. And this is how this was originally set to go. So they this is from the reboot of it. So this is from the last trilogy set. This is actually from the Into Darkness. So if you notice, this has a very big buzzard collector area for the nacelle, and it kind of flares back to a smaller piece, unlike in the original Star Trek, where there were tubes that were on there. I'm sure for anyone watching this that's a long time watcher of Star Trek and everything else, the reason why they had done these engines on pylons like this is the idea is much like a regular aircraft. If there's something going wrong with these, they could always pop one off, put a new one on, you know, or take both of them off, put the new ones on as a minor upgrade or something like that. And I don't really mind that. I guess when you look at the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, our engines are usually out here in the open, and you just start shooting at the engines. But you know, with the shields and everything else, and the silliness is they worked off of each other. So when Gene Roddenberry would come up with something, then George Lucas would think about it, and then he'd try to put it into his next installment, or it'd go into the expanded universe or whatever. So it'd just go from there. When we look, and you're going to hear some shuffling because I do have figures in here and they have their phasers. So when we look at this, this is pretty much a set piece here. And we do have the lights in here, and this is just kind of pieces over that. There is a button on the bottom here, And of course it's not going to work. I don't have batteries in here. I just tried the batteries just to see if they worked. Unfortunately, I have that a little bit of corrosion in there, so it won't make the proper contact. So we can't get the lights to light up, and I think I had some sound to it as well. It also has a missile launcher, so if I push this off to the side, it would launch the missile, and I do have the missile right here. So as I go ka-thunk. So it's just a standard, you know, regular missile here. And then I'm going to launch it into my hand here. There. It's kind of nice. Even with this all lighting up, even our radar dish would light up. So that is a nice feature. Has some nice decals on there. USS Enterprise, United Federation of Planets. So that is kind of nice for any of us old Trekkies. And then when we get to the actual saucer section, so once I pop this up, which I kind of had hammered it down a little extra. Okay, so we have bones. So this really is the original cast. And I'll get bones standing up here. And then this is your view screen, so that actually folds up. And then we have our little dust here. So we have Chekhov, Sulu, Uhura, Spock, Kirk, and McCoy. And then they even had some phasers in here. So they have phasers. This is actually from Into Darkness, and that if you look at the phasers, it looks like it flips around, unlike the standard Type 2 phasers that they had in the original series. And then we also have the handles on the side for whatever, I believe it was, you know, for like the thruster controls and that. So we have Uhura here. She's looking at her communications, and Spock's got his science station. Of course, there's McCoy for our medical. Chekhov is our weapons officer, and Sulu is actually our pilot. So it is kind of nice. I'm not really trying to knock it. It is pretty nice. The only thing is I kind of wish this was a little bit thicker, so that way I could keep bones standing up. Unfortunately, when you look at this, he doesn't like to stand up in there. This does not want to go all the way down. If you notice, I've got a gap. I can fit my finger in there with the view screen and all that up. So you really have to lower the view screen. And bones is actually a little out of place for me to put this all the way down. I can put it down, but it doesn't want to actually brick in there. I suppose what I could do is I could actually take some of those red pieces and put it underneath to maybe get that to work, but I never thought about that before until now. But this is a very nice looking ship. When you look around, and the fact that it comes down, this is where our shuttles go in. The going off on tangents here, so please bear with me. I don't know how familiar you are with Star Trek. Me, unfortunately, being, you know, like I said, I like Star Trek and I like Star Wars. On the original Star Trek we were talking about, the ship was almost 300 meters long. In the Kelvin universe, the Enterprise for this one is actually about 600. I think it's a little over 600 meters long. So really twice the size when you think about it in that regard. The funny part is when you really look at the size of the ships in Star Trek, and you always see that the nacelles are hanging over, you know, our engines are hanging way out here. So almost a third of our size is from the engine when we're talking about how long it is. But I grew up with them, and it'll always hold a place in my heart. There are different designs and all that, because you get like the Enterprise is classified more as a battle cruiser. But even with it being that way, I mean, because the Federation being more peaceful, but realizing that there are tensions between the Federation and the Klingons, they were expected to go out and explore and defend themselves. Where the Klingons made small ships like this, and they did a lot of raiding and then they made bigger versions and all that stuff. So, but these are the ships that I have for, or from Kreo for Star Trek. I did not get, oh geez, honestly I'm drawing a blank as to what the big ship that they had for Into Darkness, the one that was actually more of a black. I can't remember what that was. I haven't watched that in a while, and I had the hankering to watch like Star Trek and the Wrath of Khan and all that. So I'm really more the original series and the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I had a little bit of a harder time getting into Voyager, not trying to say it's bad, just that for the timing and my age and everything else, I had more important things to do. And even when I was a kid, I didn't get into Deep Space Nine until later on. And then I kind of said, you know, this is as far as I'm willing to go. I do watch the Lower Decks, so if anybody watches the Lower Decks, I find it hilarious, and I look at it as it's just a cartoon slapstick version of Star Trek. In some regards, I don't put it into Star Trek. I just keep it all off on its own, just for the silliness of it. But that's me, and everybody's different, and I recognize that, and you know, it's our differences that really make communities a whole. Everybody's entitled to their thoughts, you know, whether we agree with them or not, and I really believe in that. So we do have, you know, a little blue here. I think they're trying to copy like a 10 forward from like Star Trek The Next Generation. We never really had that on the original Enterprise. It was small windows. I think they did have 3 windows in the front, but it wasn't as major of a thing as they made when they did The Next Generation. But The Next Generation was a whole different series and a whole different outlook in life. And honestly, in anything, I really enjoy the Star Trek outlook in life, that we as a human species kind of got over ourselves, and we actually had a peaceful world and a peaceful existence with many groups, the Vulcans and Trellerites and the whole lot. We even made peace with the Klingons. Yeah, it's a little touchy here and there, and you know, there's differences. I think with any culture there's always differences, but we have to recognize that even with our differences, we're pretty close to the same outlooks in life. So but with that being said, I think we've gone on long enough. I hope you really enjoy this. I mean, I know it's a little different. It's not my Star Wars or anything else. I think a little change up in pace or whatever is kind of nice once in a while, and just kind of go from there. But with that being said, thank you so very much for joining us today. Hope you have a wonderful day, and keep bricking.